somebody tell me my worth and my value. And I looked at him and I said with all my strength, I said, put that down right now. And he was stunned. And he paused. And I'll just tell you, I said, put it down right now in the name of Jesus. And he paused and he looked at me stunned, because I guess the authority with which I said it to him. And he said, and I said, God, I said, do you realize right now that what you're doing is actually the embodiment and the personification of every stereotype that causes a guy that looks like me to get shot down or killed, or if you're going to live like an animal, but yet you want to be treated like you're not an animal. Don't fulfill the animal stereotype. So what happened was he put it down. He said, man, you're right. I said, you're making it harder you just made it that much harder for a black man to stay alive in America. He said, you know what, you're right. And he put it down. The next guy that was coming out, I said the same thing. And he said, who are you? Are you filming me? Because I had my phone. He said, are you filming me? He said, who are you? Who are you that you think you can tell me what to do? And I said, I'm a son of God. And I said, this is his house, not your house. And then he said, oh yeah, you trying to get with me? And he reached behind his back, and I knew what that means. That means he had a firearm. So I just let him. I had to let him go. But there was something that I observed in that moment, because I observed something very interesting. Is that we've confused the language of protest and the language of rioting and the language of looting. What we have done is what has happened is that there's this concept called the tipping point. And the tipping point is when something that is rare and rarely experienced by a few becomes the norm, because the standard becomes old and people let go of the standard, and early adopters begin, just a few people begin to do the new thing, and suddenly the narrative tips and the scales tip toward this rare fringe thing. And I want to educate you about something in history. There have always been fringe narratives. In this city last night, I saw a distinction between peaceful protests. There were three things that happened. The first thing that happened from 4 to 5 p.m. last night was our group, which some of them are here today. We did something called The Wall, which was a prayer meeting that looks like a protest. Then, after that, we did, I left and I got called back because I heard there was a group of activists coming and they were going to do a rally. Can you guys hear me okay like this? Yeah. No, not in the back. Okay. I heard they were going to do a rally. So I stayed and I watched this rally and I listened. And what happened was, it was very much, it was hype. There was a lot of energy, but, it was for the most part peaceful. And then after that ended, anarchists began to insert their agenda. And this is what I want to say to you guys. There are people who have lost hope because of the history of injustices in America. This is a nation that was built upon a standard and upon a value system that somehow it was a God-given right, and that every human possessed this God-given image and this worth and this value. And so we would create a constitutional republic where every person would have a right to the pursuit of life, liberty, and justice for all. And so it was a beautiful dream and a beautiful nation that was a nightmare for some, and it was a beautiful dream and a reality for others. But now we find ourselves in this nightmarish moment, and we're a city that's tired. And we're a people that's tired. The African American people are tired. The white community is tired. Business owners are frustrated. We're dealing with the same hangover-like feeling that I feel right now from lack of sleep, from no rest, from continual work, from continual striving and continual toil. There's a hangover from history that every single American has inherited because of the pain of the injustices of our foremothers and our forefathers. But I'm here to tell you there was that same fringe kind of thought that said, you know what? Nonviolence will not work. There was a thought that nonviolence was not a real solution. That was a dream. And so the nonviolent people in Dr. King's day would gather maybe 1,000 people over here. But God raised up a man in Dr. King who had the ability to articulate to people who had no concept and no similar experience as the black community. He was able to articulate a God dream. He was able to articulate a dream that was higher than the reality that we could see with our eyes. And it was such a dream that it began to resonate in the hearts of everybody who was hurting. And it also began to resonate in the hearts of everybody who was living a dream. And they begin to realize, wait, it's not the full dream unless everybody in America can live that same dream. Amen. You're right. We'll come and we'll stand with you. And so what happened was all of a sudden, his gatherings became 2 times and 3 times and 4 times and 5 times and 10 times as big as the fringe group gatherings who said, you know what, the only solution is a violent revolution. Where I'm here to tell you today that we've negated our voice. Because I realized last night that when I saw this young man looting, and I saw other people looting, and it wasn't just black people, it was white people looting, it was young people looting, it was old people looting. And I said, these are people who have lost hope, and they believe that the only solution is the pursuit of justice according to their own ways in their own hands. And I said to a young man, I said, do you realize that if you were to try to go to war with the U.S. government, you don't have Apache helicopters and tanks and stealth fighters? It would annihilate you. And he goes, well, we're all dying anyway. We might as well die fighting. And I thought, wow, hope has been lost. This morning, I met a young lady, not a young lady, a lady in her 70s who's lived here and loves this community. And she was so angry, so hurt. And she says, well, where were you last night? Were you preaching and praying last night? If you weren't, where were you? And I said, actually, I was right here. And she says, oh, well, at least you know what you can do, but what can I do? And I said to her, I said, you know what? Why don't you come out here? And she's like, what? And I said, yeah, wait a second. And a light bulb kind of went off. And I want you guys, I want you guys to just dream with me for a moment and understand something. There were maybe 20 to 30, maybe 40 people who were actually attacking this city last night. And I want to say there's a difference between riot and a terrorist attack. I believe that there are people who are so radicalized against America at this point, legitimately because of our broken history. But there's so much anger that they are really radicalized to the point that they desire to see this thing fall 100%. But do you know, out of all those people, how many of you still believe that peace is not a broken concept, that nonviolence is a real truth, that it could actually happen? Listen, how many of you believe that we could actually overcome, even though we can't see it with our eyes right now, but that there was a generation who had overcome far more trying times than what we're in right now? Many generations in human history, they did not lose hope. And you know what? They didn't go to war with their own government. How many of you believe that perhaps there is a solution beyond a violent revolution?
Yes. Yes.
Come on. Now, out of this crowd and out of the crowd last night, There were hundreds that were standing back just filming the rioters and the looters. They were just filming it. They weren't engaging. And I go, wow. Somehow we have been convinced that we're outnumbered.
Come on, JT.
Somehow we have been convinced that everybody who believes in peace and believes in the possibility of love and believes in the possibility of understanding one another, somehow we have been convinced that, you know what? The leadership, there is no leadership. You know why we think there's no leadership? It's because we are the leadership, the vacuum that needs to be filled. The leadership is you and the leadership is me.
Yes.
The leadership are the business owners on this strip, the homeowners, the taxpayers, the people who are stakeholders in this community, the people who are invested. They are the leadership. And so I thought, man, what if only 5%, 10%, 20%? What if 20% of Ferguson residents or St. Louis residents showed up? What if you showed up and filled the streets? How many people would we rally? 10% of Ferguson, that's about 5,000 people. There was 1,000 last night. What's happened is the messaging and the methods that were fringe in the 60s are now mainstream. And it's not even large crowds of people, but they're mainstream because it's the only story for the media to cover. There's no manifestation. There's no manifestation of an alternative movement that can actually bring people of every socioeconomic, every culture, every persuasion, every belief system together in a way where we can actually say, you know what? We believe. Now, guys, I just want you guys to say this. Say, we hear you.
We hear you.
I was talking today to a group of grassroots, just kind of talking.